Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Adriana Kubalik. I'm the marketing manager for Sentinels. Thank you for joining us for our very first Sentinels Connect webinar. As a part of this series, we are looking forward to bringing you more content on subject matters that are important to you. We firmly believe that knowledge sharing is the key to efficient compliance and risk management systems. So this webinar is split into two parts. The first part will discuss two regulatory jurisdictions that our clients wanted to know more about, the Netherlands and Lithuania. And finally, a discussion with one of our clients and his perspective on the subject. And to get us started as the moderator for our first session is our head of FC and AML, Faisal Islam. Faisal, could you take over?
Thank you so much, Adriana. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon to most of you, and good morning to a few of you, and a late evening to the rest of you. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first Sentinels Connect webinar. We're very excited to bring this series to you. The information that we put together, the panelists that we joined in here are really the matters and the subject matters that we collected really came from you. So we look forward to more suggestions and feedback as well, so we can really provide the type of content and information that might be very relevant towards you. We firmly believe that not only technology is the ultimate enabler of AML and regulatory challenges, but really a lot of expertise and knowledge. So to that goal, here's a little bit of an agenda of the subject matters that I will moderate with our speakers here. I'll start by introducing Sentinels, and then our two excellent speakers. One of these really great challenges is trying to find great speakers for the content you have, and you sort of have a roster of speakers to pick. And really, we picked almost luckily the best speakers that we could find on this subject. So we're very grateful for that. Really, our session will be about the tale of two countries, and we're really going to talk about Netherlands and Lithuania. Finally, we're going to have our very first country spotlight. In this situation, it will be Lithuania, and our chief commercial officer and a dear client of ours are going to take the latter part of this session. So let's get started. Sentinels essentially was established in 2019 as a response to an increasing need in really efficient AML and transaction monitoring. We launched with seed funding of roughly 7 million euros into really new markets, EU, APAC, and we really like being very strong at the markets that we're in right now. Our team has certainly grown to meet the demands, and we look forward to increasing more. So those of you here that are attendees, we look forward to you contributing to the Sentinels team. Since then, Sentinels have actually gone far beyond just AML compliance and transaction monitoring. The platform is becoming more and more a context-based client intelligence platform. We recognize that several departments in a financial service industry, so most of our clients being PSPs and EMIs, interact with a lot of the lateral departments they have in their company, whether that's marketing or go-to-market and so on. So Sentinels provides a way for compliance officers to do really well the jobs that they have to do, but taking in also a lot of data from some of the lateral departments that have an effect on transactions and the kind of risks that they are faced with every day. Okay, so a little bit about Sentinels out of the way. Let's start with our first speaker. Inga is a partner at ECOVIS Proventus law firm. She has more than 2 decades of experience in the legal sector. She's a leader in the Fintech accelerator space at ECOVIS Proventus Law. She's also a co-founder, an active board member of the first and currently the biggest Fintech hub, aptly named Fintech Hub Lithuania. She really has deep experience in regulatory compliance, licensing of financial institutions, and of course, the anti-money laundering requirements and maintenance, as well as the framework for most of you. We are very pleased to have her join us here, and we look forward to a great discussion. And I invite every one of you as well to contact Inga as well for further questions if you have any. Our second speaker is Dagmar van Ravenswaay Claasen. Dagmar is very well known to Sentinels. She's actually a special advisor to Sentinels. She is also a venture partner at Borski Fund, which focuses primarily on technology and diversity. Because folks realized she had more talents, she's also very active as a business angel with RocketX, Reflow, Collider, and VentureRock, and has numerous board positions at Luma Labs, Docking to Amsterdam, and The Happy Activist. One of our notable experiences was at Adyen, where she headed out the regulatory affairs division there, and a lot of the success of Adyen nowadays can really be credited and directly linked to her her involvement. So with all things considered, she might be an excellent speaker if you hadn't known the fact that she was also had a distinguished career at the Dutch Central Bank. And she really helped to improve a lot of the integrity in the financial sector in the leadership roles there. So who better to have as a speaker here as well. So welcome, Dagmar.
Thank you.
And so while I have you, Dagmar, one of the things that is quite apparent in the EU sector is that many fintechs have their base of operations here. Some of them have started in Europe and chosen Netherlands as their base of operations. A lot of fintechs from the US have chosen Netherlands also as their European base of operations. So while trying to find all the reasons why that would be the ideal situation for that, we came across a couple of reasons. And the first reason we found was that the Netherlands had what we called a predictable regulatory framework. So can you help shed a little bit light about that, please?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's of course very helpful for a fintech when thinking about where he or she should start its business, to also think about the regulatory framework that goes with it. And in Europe, we are in a way lucky that we have one overarching regulatory framework. And choosing the Netherlands also has to do with the strong EU regulatory framework to start with. But why then the Netherlands? I think that the Dutch Central Bank and the AFM, they have a long-standing already supervisory role, which became more and more predictable. And you can find that, for instance, in financial regulation that has been put down in guidelines. So it's easy for a fintech to sort of read those guidelines and know in a way what to expect from the regulator. And also, if you look at the interaction between the supervisor and the fintech, it's also more and more in a way of a project approach. And that is what I at least have experienced very well during that time at Adyen, but also on the other side, when I was working for the Dutch Central Bank, we really made the effort in being a more innovative and intrusive regulator in that predictable way.
While predictable, it also has a reputation for being quite tough, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. And it shows also in sort of the fines that some big banks had now been given. On the other hand, it is also good that a regulator shows his teeth, because only then it also builds up trustworthiness for a sector as a whole. If you never show your teeth, then it's very difficult to create trust in a certain sector.
Now, in order to make sure that PSBs or financial service providers are spared from the jaws of the regulator here, there are quite a bit of expertise still in the field in the Netherlands to be able to assist with that, isn't it?
Yes, indeed, and that comes also with that experience. It's indeed an industry of services. There's a lot of excellent sort of law firms, boutique law firms on specific topics where you can ask for help during this whole licensing process. But also you see that there's a lot of talent that you can therefore also attract when you start your fintech that have that specific knowledge with regards to either financial reporting or specific interpretation on regulation. So yeah, that really helps.
And in contrast to a lot of other regulatory jurisdictions, Netherlands specifically with regards to its boutique of industry and services and specific regulatory experience, we're talking about folks that have actually worked at the DNB, have actually worked in the sectors itself. And it's not sort of, someone that was probably an attorney or a specialist and decide to take this on. These are people with practical experience that can actually assist financial service requesters at the DNB, right?
Correct. Yeah. And if you talk about sort of the way people interact with each other, it's also quite informal. So in that sense, it's also a nice experience to talk to the various either advisors or regulators to have that sort of more informal interaction.
And I think what really frames all of this really well is that the country of Netherlands, and where I would say most of all the placements of the bodies are in Amsterdam, has always been a very welcoming country and city as well. It's been welcoming to foreigners. It's been welcoming to all walks of life. And I think that's one of the biggest attractions for EU fintechs to really choose Netherlands as a basis, isn't it?
That comes indeed with the open culture of the foreign talent. It's quite. I mean, everybody would speak English. Everybody loves Dutch people. Really like foreigners to sort of absorb them in their company. You see that within Sentinels already. There, I mean, not only. I think this week only I came across. People who started to work for Sentinels came from Spain, I think is Lithuania, India. It's all over the place and all over the globe. And yeah, they absorb really well within Amsterdam, within that culture. So yeah, you have to also, of course, encounter the directness of the Dutch people. So openness sometimes comes with the directness, and that can scare people. So it's sometimes also building a bridge between those two cultures, so there are those various cultures and the Dutch culture. So yeah.
And if we talk about modern day PSPs and the type of target customers that they want to reach, really they're reaching most of the demographics that are very much open and think in a very open way. So if a PSP or a financial service provider, I should say, internally is open and has a broad set of different cultures, they have a better success in also reaching their customer demographics as well.
Absolutely. I strongly believe in diverse teams, and you really see that a diverse team, either male, female, or indeed coming from different backgrounds, ethnical backgrounds, it really helps in understanding the client need in a deep manner. Absolutely.
And more to the point about what we're talking about here, which is anti-money laundering controls and so on. In fact, I have seen firsthand how individuals from different countries working alongside each other have gone on to build excellent anti-money laundering controls because each of them bring with them the experience of certain native inherent risks that might not be obvious to someone that hasn't necessarily worked in that sector.
Yeah. No, indeed. I mean, I remember cases where there was money laundering going from, I think it was Amsterdam to Norway and then back to Brazil. And then it really also helps to understand, like, why is this scheme actually set up? What is happening? What's the money flow doing? And what's the reasoning behind it? And if you can have that conversation within your fintech, it is super helpful to think about new scenarios and about existing scenarios to discover them.
Absolutely. And I'm very happy to say that, that has been one of the biggest attributes that we see in our Dutch clients, and certainly in the office here at Sentinels as well. But not to be outshunned, there is another quite an interesting country that has been growing very much on the radars of fintechs themselves, and has really had an explosion of activity. And Sentinels has been very lucky to be able to meet contingencies from that country. And so that country is Lithuania, and Inga, I'd really love for you to tell us why fintechs mostly are choosing Lithuania as their basis of operations. And, we hear a lot about the predictable regulatory framework, which Dagmar just said. Is the Lithuanian predictable regulatory framework just as predictable?
Yes, thank you, Faisal. Lithuania is the same predictable as the Netherlands because we are as well members of the European Union. So the same directives, the same guidelines, EBA guidelines are applicable for Lithuanian regulator and Lithuanian companies licensed in Lithuania. So why Lithuania is so friendly for fintechs, or maybe why fintechs come to Lithuania? So there were some surveys done in Lithuania, and there were several reasons. So fintech-friendly regulator and very good infrastructure is a main reason. As well, companies mention ease of doing business, talent pool availability, some personal relationships, target client market. However, the regulator, like fintech-friendly regulator and infrastructure the regulator gives for fintechs is the main reason. And the Bank of Lithuania basically has stated that they are seeking to become a partner for the financial sector, promoting innovation and sustainable growth. And they strike the right balance between acknowledging of managing potential risks and also enabling technology to be innovative in financial sector. So the predictable regulatory framework is as well combined with a consultative approach by the Bank of Lithuania. And I can say that these are maybe the trends, the best practices and the trends in the world for the regulator to be advisor and to communicate more with the financial market participants. So the Bank of Lithuania seeks to have a healthy and mature financial sector. And that is why,
No, but what you're saying is very interesting. In fact, if we look at some of the numbers, really, as of 2016, about the number of really fintechs out there to 2021 going to 22, we're looking at a 4x, 5x almost explosion of the number of fintechs in the space and growing. And so, do you think the regulator chose the consultative approach not only because they felt that's the right thing to do, but perhaps it is also self-serving, so they can also learn from the market because of how fast it's growing? It would serve them well to also create a two-way dialogue between the regulator and the fintechs itself, so that it doesn't really get out of hand.
Yes, I think you are right. However, because of so many fintechs are now in Lithuania, even if they are small at the moment, and we do not have plenty, it's not maybe the biggest country in terms of transactions. However, to talk with each company is quite a challenge. So that is why Bank of Lithuania took really one of the best approaches, as other leading countries in financial sector as well approach to the financial sector is communication and trainings, expectation letters, self-check questionnaires, etc. And they do as well have very good risk management systems. Bank of Lithuania is a leader of the digitalization of the reports of financial institutions, and Bank of Lithuania collects according to my knowledge, quite a lot and maybe more information from the financial participants in the market, because, for example, AML reporting is done quarterly and not once per year, as in a lot of other EU jurisdictions. So that means that data and risk assessment is constantly done, and not only manually, but with the IT tools and some artificial intelligence tools. So Bank of Lithuania is not only innovative regulator and fintech friendly, but as well as innovative regulator in terms of supervision. So
and you're absolutely right on that. In fact, one of the things we've noticed that is in line with a lot of the fintechs in Lithuania is, yes, they have a very helpful regulator that is also trying to catch up with this large amount of innovation, but it really serves these companies that are mostly startups / scale-ups to be able to set a base of operations and get running right away, just because of how affordable a lot of the critical core systems are, such as the RegTechs that they would want to take on, the core banking systems, core payment systems, as well as just general IT infrastructure. So has that always been the case, or is this the industry's response to this new sector?
Of course, this is the response of industry in this sector, and that is why we can see not only the number of financial institutions, but as well the number of RegTech based and founded in Lithuania rising in all the Europe now, and some of them even Lithuanian-based startups most probably are going to become unicorns in this RegTech sphere. So this is the consequence of fintech like regulatory environment in Lithuania and government approach and policy of the government and the Bank of Lithuania. And in addition, yes, Bank of Lithuania as well raised like a plan for themselves to have to build the reputation of the country and see the license in Lithuania as a trademark and a sign of quality.
Mm-hmm. And if that wasn't enough, one of the great things Lithuanian fintechs can't get as soon as they get started is actually have access to not only a sandbox, but a fully functioning pan-European access to transactions. So tell us a little bit about the sandbox and the central link.
So the regulatory sandbox allows potential and existing financial market participants to innovate. That means to test financial innovations in a live environment under the guidance and supervision of the Bank of Lithuania. So this is for really very innovative products. And as to my knowledge, at the moment, there are some InsurTech and WealthTech products in the sandbox tested. And as of for Centralink, so this is the system like SEPA connection, a European payment connection to European Payment Council, and Centralink system growth in Lithuania has been unprecedented. You know, in 2020 there were more than 100 fintech companies connected and participating in this system, and this system allows allows for companies to connect to SEPA credit transfers, SEPA instant payments, and SEPA direct debit core schemes. So that means that they do not need to have banks as a middleman to connect to European Payment Council. Despite of significant interest in Centralink, about 1/3 of all applications are rejected during the onboarding. Then Bank of Lithuania see that the risk and reputation of the participants are not in line with the expectations.
Now, we've just, you basically sold us on this. And I think anyone who is wanting to start a startup has a lot of really great arguments to start in Lithuania. But yet there are some ongoing improvements that we should be mindful of. And if we start with Netherlands, for example, Dagmar, I want to give you a little bit of time here to really, explain that though Netherlands, does have a history in this and has a proven track record for quite a long time, and sometimes is actually seen as the standard of excellence from a lot of the other European countries to want to match up to, there is a high bar requirement sometimes that might not necessarily be aligned with effectiveness. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what you do see is that the first, second, and third line of defense, being the operations and then sort of compliance and audit, is something that the regulator regards highly and will also demand from maybe companies that are not in that sort of stage yet. So that's one thing that you sometimes get sort of pushback from, like, hey, is this all necessary? Second thing is, with regards to policies and procedures, you also see a high level of demand into details where sometimes the fintech wonders if that is really effective. And there's sort of a tension, and it's also sort of a discussion that you need to have with the regulator to explain, like, we are doing it in a more agile way. We're not writing down all lines, but we're writing down what we think the goal should be or the necessity is. So that's also one. And then, you see that with regards to risk management, you see compliance teams growing because of also sort of the fright that they're not being compliant. And then the cost of operation also rises, let alone sort of that a person who works in that field will be much more costly in Amsterdam than in Lithuania, I can imagine.
That's a very good argument. So what you essentially also said there, which I really enjoyed, is that a granularity requirement in the policies and procedures does not necessarily mean a high effectiveness in deterring, detecting, and reporting financial crime.
No, exactly. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, I know that big banks will have huge policies, and it still didn't prevent them from getting fined. So something has to change in that regard.
Okay, so a lot more studies and a lot more review is needed. And you also just mentioned is that if one of the solutions is to add more staff, and that just also means that the cost of the AML function and the department just goes up even more, which then creates this disincentive for management to be able to add more staff to it, because it is very expensive to have a compliance staff based in the Netherlands to carry out operations here.
Correct. And you can wonder also if you, as a sort of a board member of a fintech, would want that. You would want to focus highly on sort of your product, your sales, and your operations. And compliance should be, of course, an important part of that, but not sort of driving your cost too much. So I also believe that sort of the first line of defense should actually be the technology, and the second line of defense should be the people looking at that technology. Like, okay, do we get a feedback loop? Do we need sort of new rules in the technology that's going to help us make better decisions?
Well, Dagmar, if you're up for rewriting the 3 lines of defense, I'm always up for it. So that was a great intro to that. But I do want to bring up something in Lithuania that maybe you might even acknowledge, Inga, is that yes, it is an extremely growing market, very moving, lots of excitement there, but there is also a ramp up that needs to occur in terms of the maturation and some of the practical experiences in the space, right?
Yes, basically, the maturation of the market is the main aim of all the market and the Bank of Lithuania. So yes, we do have some maybe the main areas where to grow and where to become better, and maybe one of the leaders in European Union. So this is AML, cybersecurity, the supervision of other risks such as governance, 3 lines of defense, how to structure them, as Dagmar said, if it is not too much or not enough. So safeguarding of clients' funds, especially for the electronic money institution, payment institutions, is always quite a painful thing. Capital requirements, so financial adequacy, how much capital do these startups have? So many startups, if they have enough of investments. So yeah, strengthening of the fintech market maturities in the field of compliance.
But it's not such a bad thing if it's still growing, because one of the things it can do is look to other jurisdictions and see, well, what hasn't worked there? Maybe let's not try the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, look, one of the things that is the most enjoyable part of my work as head of financial crime and AML at Sentinels is I work with the compliance officers of Sentinels directly. I work with the compliance teams. I want to make sure, obviously, that their program requirements with regards to transaction monitoring, suspicious activity detection, reporting, case management is well served by Sentinels on an ongoing basis. And I have noticed some interesting things when I talk to my fellow Dutch compliance officer clients and my Lithuanian compliance officer clients. And this is this has been really my most exciting part of my work. So on the side of 4 pillars and having a risk-based approach, that has been quite uniform and required for both the Dutch and the Lithuanian compliance officers and their program requirements. Both of them also have to have a fit and proper requirements with regards to management, board, and the key operational staff. And finally, on the safety and soundness part, both of them actually have very high bars of safety and soundness tests, both on any type of capital risk that might happen, any type of stress tests that they might have to incur, independent and audit testing of their AML program, and various types of other controls that need to be put in place. I've seen that quite common across both. And on those ends, if the program just existed for those 4 things, I think it would be very interchangeable, whether it's a Dutch compliance officer, Lithuanian compliance officer, barring language requirements perhaps. But there are 2 situations where both my friends in the Dutch compliance space, compliance officers as well as Lithuanian compliance officers, have pulled out their hairs of those of us that have some still left. So if I was to, for example, talk about the Lithuanian side, Inga, can you tell me a little bit why the sanctions program can be actually quite challenging? Already we know it is a direct liability and it has a requirement, but why is it a little bit more of a challenge for Lithuanian compliance officers?
So the problem might be that basically we are situated on the border with Belarus, and now both EU and the US has issued the new sanctions for Belarusian regime. So and having so many relationships with Belarus, Lithuanian Fintechs might have some issues identifying those risks and acknowledging the risks because of secondary sanctions, which will come into force in the end of this year. And on the other hand, there is a practice and the requirement from the Bank of Lithuania to screen all the customer base as well all the transactions together with the explanations of the transactions in the sanction list every day. So of course, a person himself or herself cannot do that manually. So that's where the IT tools can help.
That's right. And so that's one thing we've noticed quite a bit. Yes, Dagmar.
Yes, no, Inga, I was just wondering, did you also notice then that with sort of fintechs that you're helping, that they're really, that the business is being slowed down because they have to block all these transactions?
No, not yet. Basically not, because I believe that the majority of the clients which are related to the Belarusian business are with the banks. And my expertise is with fintech. So no, recently, yesterday we just combined the letter to the Bank of Lithuania from the Fintech Hub LT Association, and we noticed that it's quite a low risk for the fintechs regarding the sanctions with Belarus. But of course, there will be some developments in the future, US sanctions, etc. So this theme is not yet finished and not yet completed. So a lot of things to do.
Yeah, very good about that. I mean, that obviously has an operational requirement to it, but we have seen also firsthand experience why, proper operational implementation can really minimize a lot of the sort of stress, worry, and the requirement of certainly that daily requirement as a whole. However, Dagmar, some of my, Dutch compliance officers, clients, they love the job they do. They want to be able to detect, deter, and really bring out any type of illicit activity that might be coming across their fingers. However, one of the things that they sometimes may get a little bit, I wouldn't say frustrated, but probably a little bit, less encouraged about is that they don't necessarily have to report to the level of suspicion. In fact, the Netherlands has a high bar of requirement, of minimal reporting requirement than a lot of other countries.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of reports being done on the objective indicator. I think that's what you're sort of mentioning.
Right.
And that is indeed quite, black and white. It's very, very binary. because it doesn't really say something about if it is a suspicious transaction. It's an unusual transaction, maybe, but it has to be combined with lots of other data points. And that's indeed where the frustration of a lot of compliance officers comes from. Like, okay, we just need to have a tool that reports through everything that is above the threshold of 15,000, the objective threshold, which is, yeah, you can question if that is something that the FIU itself uses in their investigations with regards to financial crime.
That's right. And in fact, it's one of those ways where it sort of makes it challenging for a compliance officer to say, well, I guess I don't have to do that much work yet in really, finding the suspicious activity. I just have to make sure that the prescriptive requirements of reporting has been met. And maybe the time I really take a closer look at is when an FIU sends a response back about a UTR that I have sent. In fact, the Netherlands is the only country in the world that has a UTR, and it starts at the unusual level. Now,
correct.
This was excellent. I really enjoyed a lot of these conversations, and I can tell from the participant list that there are a lot of participants from the Netherlands and Lithuania as well. So Dagmar, let's start with you. What are certain things that fintechs that are recently established or newly established in Netherlands need to be, pay more closer attention and watch out for?
Well, maybe something that has taken a lot of interest also in the newspapers is the cryptocurrency registration obligation of the Dutch Central Bank, that they were sort of really questioning themselves, how should we regulate this new market? And they decided on a registration. And the registration is something else than something totally different than a permit, than a permission. But the Dutch Central Bank also wants to get sort of more insights in, okay, is their business in order? Is it a sound business? What kind of a business is? Are the people who are running that crypto business sound, people who can actually do so? So there was actually a verdict from a judge that told the Dutch Central Bank to motivate in a different manner why the registration was actually more strict or going towards getting a permit. So it was just too much demands, too much requirements at the front door.
So this is an update that it would be very useful for Dutch fintechs that have exposure to cryptocurrency. And Inga, leave us with a little bit of preview here. What's something that can be expected out of Bank of Lithuania that perhaps wasn't there before and really fintech should be very, very mindful of?
So Bank of Lithuania recently has been really active in communication on their expectations and on good and bad practices they notice from the financial market participants. And we have recently seen their good and bad examples on the business-wide risk assessment, as well the opinion or the letter about the nonprofit organization, onboarding of nonprofit organization related with the risking. And in the future, as it was announced, at least we are expecting to receive the information like the summary on good practices on customer business relationships and operation monitoring by the Bank of Lithuania. And I have not yet mentioned, but in Lithuania, we have a unique maybe institute, the body is AML Center, which was initiated and co-founded with the Bank of Lithuania and some of major banks, FIU, Ministry of Finance. And this is an independent body, and they as well are working on trainings, on consultations to the market, like releasing information guidance, and they are preparing, at least as it was communicated from them, they are preparing sanctions framework, good and bad practices, because this is an important theme in Lithuania.
Very good. So message from Inga, stay tuned and stay informed. And reach out to either Dagmar or Inga for whichever updates are, so because these are highly important. You really need specialists to be able to ensure you let you know about these. So we're very pleased that we were able to bring you a little bit of a preview of this, as well as things to note out for, and obviously future updates to be mindful of. And as part of this series, one of the things we probably want to do as well is have a country spotlight. And since we referred to Netherlands, which we Sentinels calls the home base, we do want to spotlight another country that's very near and dear to us as well, Lithuania, and to really talk about that and then talk about something special that we might have in Lithuania soon. I'm pleased to introduce Sumit. Sumit is our Chief Commercial Officer, and Sumit, what do you have in store for us?
First and foremost, Faisal, thanks. Also, thanks to Dagmar and Inga for sharing your wisdom on the ever-evolving, very complex regulatory framework within the European markets which you represent. So, as Faisal said, next in the episode, I would like to get some view to be added from a very fast-growing fintech operating from Europe on this topic. And I would like to invite Daniel, who's CEO of Transactive, to the conversation. Daniel, welcome. Would you like to please introduce yourself and Transactive?
Yeah, thanks, Sumit. Yeah, so Transactive, basically, we're dual licensed, which is somewhat unusual, but kind of a growing trend. We have an EMI license in Lithuania, and then we have an EMI license in the UK as well with the FCA. So with that two-pronged approach, we've really been focused on the Euro side of the business in Lithuania. And a lot of that is just because of how friendly they've been with business and everything that they've facilitated there for us. What we're basically trying to do is we're democratizing banking so we can empower our customers to build the future. And you go, okay, great tagline, but what does that mean? So basically, we're acting as a layer in between the banks and customers that need to use us. And those can be other fintechs, other banks. Those could be possibly crypto exchanges, insurance companies, or e-commerce companies. We're basically giving the tools and the empowerment and the ability to our customers, who then have customers of their own, to build what we think is the future of finance and the way that the world will work.
Great. And Daniel, maybe just to also share some lesser known fun facts about yourself as well.
Yeah, I was going to share a fun fact about you, but I decided not to do that. We'll keep it PG. So no, fun fact about me is I'm a fourth generation Oregonian. My family came over on the Oregon Trail. So I have pioneer blood in me. And I think that some of that has helped lead to us expanding out to Lithuania. So I like to think that the Lithuanians and everything going on in Lithuania right now is very much pioneer spirit. And to me, that's really exciting. And that's why you have an American playing and building a company in Lithuania, because I think they're giving the tools to entrepreneurs and pioneers that want to build the new wave of the future.
Absolutely, fully agree. So Daniel, given that your company Transactive operates in the EU regulatory framework as well, would you like to share why you chose for Lithuania operationally?
Yeah, so just some I guess background on what we've been doing. So we've been pretty silent on it. Like I said, we sit in the background, so we're not consumer facing. We're not your Revolut. We're not Monzo. We're not somebody who's out in the front that you would see every day. But silently, we've become one of the biggest players in the space. So we've done just about 10 billion in transactions in euro. And we have thousands of clients and millions of accounts live with our system. We support some of the biggest players in the space with our technology, and everything we do is built around our core infrastructure, which is a cloud-based banking platform that we've built. And so with all of that, Lithuania has been very supportive. And I think that there's really kind of several things that we really like about Lithuania. I would say one is the people. The people are just incredible. Like I said, pioneer minded. I think they get it. I mean, this is something that you see in a country that's only been independent for 31 years. So I think that has a lot of it, because I personally come from a background where, I had to work my way up as well. And I kind of have a chip on my shoulder. I feel like Lithuania is a little bit the same way. They're 31 years, newly independent, and they have a lot of ground to make up. There's a lot of other countries in the EU that have had so much time ahead of them to build things. And I think that they're doing a great job of saying, how do we catch up, and then not only catch up, but surpass some of these countries. So the people have a spirit about them that is just incredible. They're very hard workers. The second is the infrastructure. So, Inga is on this call. There's very, very talented people in Lithuania from a legal perspective, from a venture capital perspective, from a technology perspective. They're all very skilled. And that's something that you don't find in maybe some of the other Eastern European countries that I've been to. And the Lithuanians are very strong, and I think only getting stronger on that side. And then the second is just the business environment, or the third would be the business environment. So taxes and other things that, help on that. And then, not to be forgotten, but the regulator. So I would just say the regulator gets it. There's other places you can go to in the EU or outside of the EU. And if you're not a bank, they don't understand. It's like, here is what a bank does, and you're not this. So then what are you? And they don't really know how to categorize you or what to do with you. And I think that's something that has been difficult for us when we've looked at other jurisdictions, whereas Lithuania understands what we are, they get what we are, and they know what we want to do and what we want to be. And so that to us was something that was kind of the reason why we chose Lithuania.
Thanks. I think very good piece of wisdom on the market itself. And having said this, Transactive chose Sentinels as a partner to counter money laundering and fight financial crime. If I may, why did Transactive make the choice for Sentinels? And the second part of the question, how do you see Sentinels enabling your business growth?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in two kind of ways. So I think that Sentinel sees the same things that we see with Lithuania, and some distinctions that I think that the Bank of Lithuania sees, or the regulators there see, and that Sentinel sees, and I think that we see, is that compliance is about taking a calculated risk. So compliance isn't and shouldn't be a business killer. So I always kind of say, compliance shouldn't ever run the business, and the business should never ever run compliance. Compliance has to be its own independent thing, and the business has to be able to operate in a way where compliance isn't hindering it. And so I think that Sentinels understands that, and so does Lithuania. And I think that the reason that we chose Sentinels is because we don't want to scale one-to-one. We want to be able to say, as we're scaling and growing, we want to be sustainable and do something that is good for our business. And it's not exactly something that we want to do by just saying, hey, add more bodies or add more headcount. So Sentinels is allowing us to scale by saying, let's implement technology, which was kind of a theme of the conversation earlier, right? Is like, compliance isn't just about saying no to everything, and compliance isn't about just adding more people. Compliance is about taking calculated risk and smart risk, and then also implementing technology to help you scale, because just like how the regulators are feeling the pain, you can't monitor and you can't watch every transaction. It's just impossible. And technology is kind of filling in that gap. So that was a big reason of you guys just understanding and getting what we wanted to do and needed to do. The other thing was just I'm a big proponent of like people understanding what we're doing. And I think, whether it was you or other people on the Sentinels team, you just got it, and you were very knowledgeable. Faisal, very knowledgeable. We've run into him in the past as well. And it seems like Sentinels is attracting this talent that we want to be working with. So I think it was, again, another a people reason. And then I guess the last and kind of thing that I would say is that you guys were very flexible and wanted to work around customizing solutions to us. And then everything, in the integration process, all the application docs, everything, they were just very clean and very smooth and very like aesthetic. And it always makes integrating APIs and working with rules and procedures just that much easier when everything is just so clean.
Faisal, you're back on the video. Is there something you would like to add?
Yes. So, you know, one of the things as an ex-serial compliance officer, I've always struggled with in the past is whenever I want to use sort of any type of transaction monitoring or any type of tool to be able to detect any illicit or suspicious transactions, I always used to find a big contrast between the product that I am showing my customers to be able to use and that the internal product that I use when I want to review this very, very important part of my job. And I think one of the things that we want to strike the balance is we know how much a ton of work goes into by your developers in developing your front end so that customers get an enjoyable experience, you know, conducting financial transactions or what say. And we wanted to make sure that even your compliance officers have an enjoyable experience working on something that is so difficult and so crucial. Did that have a factor in your decision as well? Yeah,
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, you guys, like I said, you guys just get it, right? And I think that we talked to people in the space where they were very knowledgeable, but the tech stack or what they were providing us just didn't quite add up to what they understood. Right. So I think they like a lot of people got it or were like leaning towards, you know, understanding what we needed or what we wanted to do with it, but they actually hadn't taken the time to build the technology or the tools that we needed. And I think that if you go back in Sentinel's history, it's kind of interesting. Like you guys spent a lot of time and a lot of power building something first before, you know, going out and trying to actually use it. And I feel like whether it's a fintech or whether it's you know, on the compliance side, like you guys, a lot of people just kind of rush out to the market and then they build to, you know, fill that gap later. And I feel like you guys kind of did it the other way around. And for us, you know, somebody that was using your technology, it was like, okay, it's not a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Like the tech is there, the implementation of the stuff that they've actually talked about is there. It was more tangible than it was kind of just like a fairy tale conversation of, wouldn't this be nice?
I'm happy you were saying that. You know, one of the defining factors of all of us here at Sentinels is that we're also users of our customers' products. So when we know how our customers want their products to be used, we want to make sure that behind the scenes, you know, your compliance folks, your anti-fraud folks, whoever is on your review side has just as much of a delightful experience reviewing the transactions for which a lot of your developers have spent a lot of time building and crafting. Thanks so much for that. Sumit, back to you.
Thanks. And so I think I can't disagree and agree more with you guys because I think Dagmar also alluded towards this, that there are two ways you can fight financial crime. One is to do manual reviews and then, you know, just add people and bodies to your compliance department. And then suddenly, even before you know that you are, 30 to 40% of your company is compliance people, or you could use technology as your first defense. And this is where Sentinel comes in to add that efficiency with the help of use of technology. At Sentinels, we are fully committed to walk this path with our clients and make sure that, you know, companies like Transactive can make good risk decisions and counter financial crime while they grow. And on this note, I would like to share with our audience that as an extension of this webinar, we'll be hosting the next Sentinels Connect program on site at Vilnius to further promote the thought leadership within the compliance landscape. We are working very closely with various industry leaders, like the ones you have seen as part of this webinar today, but even more, to prepare a very compelling agenda. The details will be communicated very soon, so please keep tuned and follow our LinkedIn page for that. And by the way, if you guys are at Money 2020, which is hosted in Amsterdam, I think starting from September 21st onwards, please reach out to us at Sentinels via LinkedIn again. We would love to meet you in person. And with this, I would like to sign off on behalf of Dagmar, Inga, Daniel, Faisal, Adriana, all of us. Wish you all the very best. And in case if you're not at Money 2020, we will see you at Vilnius at our next Sentinels Connect program. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
We actually have one question.
Yes.
For Daniel and Sumit. So yeah, if you can answer this one question. What was the integration project timeline, technical rules engine, knowledge transfer, and what was the impact scaling up, down for Lithuanian compliance team?
Faisal, it might be best if you would like to answer this question. What was the integration project timeline, rules, knowledge?
Yeah. So I don't know whether Daniel is fully briefed on this. I work also with the customer onboarding team and the compliance officers there, so I can shed a little bit of light. And then if we need more information about it, I can also give a bridge of what it is specifically for all the average clients and the average timelines that it does take. I won't share very specifics about the Transactive for obvious reasons, but Soren, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be able to provide you more information on that. I'm fairly certain, and this is something that I'm getting from the customer onboarding team. We had a roundtable meeting about this yesterday. Transactive is slated up, and I know you signed with us not too long ago, and we've already got all the rules transferred. We've got all the rules baked in. The integration's already started, and I think we're ready to start very, very soon. Our team is in constant contact with their compliance officers to make sure those are up and running. We've essentially, we've packed everything, the bread's in the oven and ready to get baked out. Daniel, maybe this part might be useful for you. What was the impact of that for either scaling up or down for the Lithuanian compliance team? What have you done on the team side that perhaps you downgrade a little bit of your hiring projections as a result? What other changes have you had to do in response to that?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that we kind of live by is like growing fast shouldn't be the goal. Growing sustainably should. So when we talk to sales or anything, and we're saying, well, how fast can we grow and what can we do? It's also in the time frame and the kind of mind view of how can we grow without breaking the system, and having bad things happen from a compliance perspective, and maybe getting ahead of compliance and not allowing them to catch up. So the whole Sentinels integration was about trying to take some of the human element out of that and saying, okay, well, if we onboard these 3 or 4 major customers, we would have to hire 1 to 5 new people, and it would take this amount of time. But with a added technology layer like Sentinels, we could say maybe we only need to hire 1 person or maybe 2, but we can get going immediately. And those other people that we're hiring, they're more on the retroactive monitoring side and other things. So it's not like you need to kind of hire and then scale up and then pause or wait for transactions to go until all of those people are ready. It's technology is there and it's working, and you can kind of go live and grow as needed, as opposed to kind of trying to do this like cat and mouse game of, oh no, new customers coming in, gotta hire a bunch of people. Oh, they didn't do all the transactions they said they were going to do. Like now we got people doing nothing. So it's the ability to scale up and scale down with technology, and I think that's been the key factor for us. I mean, unfortunately I joke with you guys about this all the time. Compliance is our biggest department, right? And it pains me to say that. I wish it was sales or technology, but it is compliance. And so just being the kind of company we are, you can never escape that, and you shouldn't. Compliance should always be at the key and the heart of everything that you do. But there is, it is funny when you look at us on the chart of top Lithuanian Fintechs, we are far smaller in the amount of people that we have working with us because we've implemented so much technology, whether it's ourselves on our own core cloud-based technology banking platform, or if it's with you guys on boosting our compliance and monitoring side of the business. So I think that we're very big believers of using technology to scale and to improve everything that we're doing. And I think that I would like to think we're ahead of the curve on that, and I think that you guys are ahead of the curve on that, and that's another reason why we're working with you guys.
Thank you so much, Daniel. As always, your generosity exceeds whatever we'd ever asked for. I thank everybody. Thank every one of you for being on this session. We look forward to meeting you in Vilnius. Inga, you'll be there, I hope, and Daniel will be there, I hope. So obviously, we'll have everyone here most of everyone here from the team in Vilnius itself. You can meet us and please ask us more questions. We'll have a lot more other individuals there that will be able to provide you a lot more background and information about this great topic. And we hope you stay in touch so you can follow along with more Sentinels Connects webinar. So on behalf of the Sentinels team and everyone else here, we thank you for being here. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.